and welcome to episode 4 of A View from Mount Sinai. I'm Dan Fraring from Mount Sinai's Light and Health Research Center, and today we're going to talk about the use of satellite imagery to characterize light at night. From earliest recorded history, people have been using some form of light to extend the day into the night. However, it was not until the invention of electric lighting that widespread nighttime illumination, both indoors and out, became a widespread reality. Lighting at night provides many benefits. It allows people to work, play, study, and interact beyond the time that daylight is available. It allows people to gather outdoors at night. It makes roadways safer. However, beginning in 1980 or so, people began to realize that lighting at night might have some drawbacks as well. Outdoor lighting can obscure our view of the night sky. It could potentially disrupt the nighttime activities of some animals, and too much light at night may also affect our health. One of the means that researchers and others have used to characterize the impacts of outdoor lighting at night is satellite imagery. I'm sure we've all seen the views of lighting from space. But how useful are these images? How much can they really tell us about the effects of nighttime light on people and the environment? In 2021, the European Union funded a project called Enlighten Me to study the impacts of light at night. The Light and Health Research Center is one of the organizations participating in this project. One of the tools the project is using in its research is satellite imagery. Let's talk to one of the researchers leading this project about the project's goals and the role they see for satellite imagery in their research. Welcome, Julia. Thank you for joining us.
Thank you.
So we want to talk about a project that your university is leading called Enlighten Me. What are the primary goals of this project? What do you hope to accomplish?
Enlighten Me project is a project whose title is Innovative Policies for Improving Citizen Health and Well-being, addressing indoor and outdoor lighting. So what we can say is that the overarching objective is to collect evidence about outdoor and indoor lighting impact on health and well-being. We choose lighting because, as a matter of fact, human beings are increasingly exposed to electric light at night. So the project, in order to achieve this overarching objective, the project is building 3 main phases. The first one is about building knowledge. So we are focusing on development of maps and collecting knowledge about health and lighting and well-being, both for indoor and outdoor lighting. We are going to know more about our 3 pilot cases because we would like to test our methods, and we have 3 cities that are specifically chosen, and they are Tartu in Estonia, it's Bologna in Italy, and also Amsterdam.
So I know that one of the strategies that you're using as part of, I think, the first phase in collecting data is satellite imagery, looking at satellite imagery of these different cities that you talked about. How do you see the project using satellite imagery?
We collected satellite imagery for the first phase, so for building knowledge. Because we would like to integrate this kind of information with the information that cities are providing about their lighting system. This in depicting a sort of complete image of the existing technology and the results in sky illumination. So we use these particularly satellite images to understand better the situation, and we combined it with some ground surveys, and especially we carried out raid in Bologna, for example. So we cross-checked also the calibration of these images by measuring luminance in several points of the city, for example. And we will do it for the 3 cities.
One of the aspects of this project that we at the Light and Health Research Center are working on is seeing how satellite imagery can help us understand how lighting affects people and the environment. Let's talk to John Bullo, the Director of Transportation and Safety Lighting here at the LHRC, to learn more about what we are doing in the project. Hi, John.
Hi, Dan.
Why don't you tell us more about what we're doing to help the Enlighten Me project with the satellite imagery analysis?
Sure, thanks. Well, this project, we're really trying to understand some of the relationships, if any, between lighting and darkness at night and different aspects of health and well-being. So the satellite imagery is just one way that we can try to understand how much light there is in some of these different cities.
Okay. So what's your view on the importance of these images? How do you think they're useful?
Well, those images actually tell us some things about what people experience at night. They're basically giving us a sense of the brightness of the Earth's surface, but as seen from space. So that has some relationship to what people might experience, but you can also imagine that there are going to be times when that's going to give you a very different experience. If you have a bright light on top of a building, for example, people may never see that light or never experience it, yet the satellite will show it as a bright area. That may be light that affects wildlife or insects or something like that, but isn't necessarily going to impact people's health or well-being.
So, John, do these images tell us anything about hotspots where there might be negative environmental impacts or impacts on people's health?
Yeah, I think they can, especially when we talk about the uplight, for example. Birds and bats and insects can fly high enough to see that light, whereas people on the ground might not. For health impacts, it may be a little trickier because many outdoor locations at night, people may just be passing through briefly or infrequently. It would be hard to imagine that would have a large impact on their health. So we really don't know where people are spending their time at night from the satellite images. Now, there are other observations as part of this project that will help us understand whether people spend more time in brighter or darker areas and whether there may be some impacts in terms of or relationships with health or other aspects of well-being in these cities.
Interesting. Okay. So are we able to get better information today now that satellite imagery is available than we were, 20 years ago or 30 years ago?
Well, one big benefit of satellite imagery is you can get a lot of data relatively quickly. You can cover what's going on as a snapshot of a city, an entire city, in one image, and that's very helpful. Now, again, there are these limitations that you're getting an image of the Earth's surface as seen from space. So by definition, that light never actually reached anyone's eyes, so that's obviously one limitation. Now, as I mentioned, you can get a sense of which areas may be brighter or dimmer, and that does that. Satellites have really improved in their resolution. A few years ago, we were talking about each pixel in an image being over 100 meters, greater than a football field. The data that we're working with, each pixel is actually only 1 meter square, so it's a relatively high resolution data. We're also able to get color information because these satellites have 3 color sensors in the blue, green, and red portions of the spectrum. So we're able to find out a little bit about, say, color temperature and some other aspects of light, which we wouldn't have been able to get less than 10 years ago.
In 2011, researchers from the Light and Health Research Center undertook a study to answer the question, how accurately does satellite imagery equate to people's actual nighttime light exposure in a particular area? Here to talk more about this study is Jennifer Bronze, a program director here at the LHRC. Jennifer was one of the researchers who led this study. So tell us about the study we did back in 2011, 2012. What motivated us to do that?
Well, the background is back in the early 2000s, there was a really interesting astronomy study that created an atlas of world sky glow, world sky brightness. And it allowed you to kind of look up all over the world to see where the sky glow levels were really high or very low. A couple years later, another group of epidemiologists used some of that information to compare incidence of breast cancer in Israel to areas where there was a lot of sky glow. So I thought that was kind of interesting. Of course, I looked up where I live, and I said, of course, there's very high sky glow where I live. And they said, but wait, I actually use blackout shades, so I have very low sky light levels in my bedroom where I sleep at night. So I actually wasn't that concerned about being disrupted by all these nasty high-pressure sodium street lights out right in front of my bedroom. So we actually developed this study to measure to what extent measurements of sky glow were predictive of how much light people have in their bedrooms at night compared to their activity during the day and the evenings.
Yeah, interesting. So how did we measure the light exposure of the subjects in the study?
Well, we worked with people that we knew were very scheduled, and that would be school teachers. They have a very similar schedule, even in all kinds of different school districts in our area and other states in our area. And they wore these devices on their heads that were specially built by us to measure not only regular light, but also light that we know is particularly effective for circadian entrainment. We also had them install similar light meters at their bedroom windows to measure how much light was actually landing on their bedroom windows and trying to come into their house. And we had them put in a third device on their nightstand. So we were able to compare how much light was bouncing around in their lives to how much was coming from outdoor lighting.
Okay, so what did we find? What were the results?
Well, similar to what my experience was, those measurements of sky glow that we saw from the World Atlas were not at all predictive of what kind of light levels people were getting in their homes, in their schools. In fact, the people that we measured, the teachers, were much more similar to the day shift nurses that we had measured in other studies, where they were very active during the day and were inactive at night. So they were not typical of the kind of patterns you would see where people are disrupted and an elevated risk for breast cancer. Another thing that was interesting, Dan, was that there were a few teachers that had some higher light levels in their homes in the evenings, and that was not at all related to how much light was coming in their bedroom window, but rather the light that they could control themselves, the lights that they turned on in their own homes. So they were very well entrained, and they were in control of what kind of light levels they were having at night.
So to sum up, while satellite imagery is improving and can give us more exact information about the characteristics of light at night as seen from space, it does not tell us much about the impacts that this light might be having on people's health. The best a satellite image can do is to point out an association between light at night and negative health outcomes. Satellite imagery alone cannot link this light with being the cause of these health impacts, any better than measures such as, let's say, population density might be able to do. For example, as seen from the study we just discussed, satellite imagery is unlikely to give us much information about how light at night might disrupt people's sleep, because most people are likely to close their window blinds or shades at night, preventing light that we see on a satellite image from even entering their home. Where satellite imagery might be useful is in remote locations where there are few people, but civilization is starting to encroach, like Madagascar or the Amazon rainforest. In these types of locations, satellite imagery could point to emerging hotspots where light at night might actually cause problems for nocturnal animals such as bats, insects, or nesting sea turtles, making them less likely to thrive in these areas. I hope you've enjoyed this episode of A View from Mount Sinai. Join us next time as we discuss more about the power of light.